Hello there, welcome to In My Opinion for BloodRayne Revamped.
Raynes is a vampire, which is a child born from a vampire and human. She travels around killing vampires who are up to no good, which catches the interest of the Brimstone Society, a group that protects mankind from supernatural threats. She joins the group and one of her first missions leads her and her teammate to Louisiana, as some villagers have been going missing. Some monsters are revealed, but more importantly is shown that Nazis are here for an artifact which they get away with. A few years pass and Brimstone has tracked down the Nazis who took said artifact, and now it's up to Rayne to retrieve it and kill these Nazis, stopping them from gaining power from this artifact. The story is pretty straightforward if you're just mowing down some Nazis. What makes it a fun ride is Rayne herself, as she's one sexy, badass woman. She enjoys her work of taking out these scum, as you can tell by her dialogue being pretty playful, though she can be serious when she needs to, and she's not some heartless bitch either, making it even easier to root for her. There are bosses that have some personality, but Rayne is the star here. BloodRayne is an action game with some hacking and slashing. You press one button to do your melee, which involves Rayne swinging her pretty cool double blades, as well as throwing some kicks. You also get some firearms that are separated by light, heavy, grenade, and special weapons. The light and heavy are things like pistols and machine guns, while special are more heavy duty weapons like a rocket launcher and a powerful shotgun. Also, as long as you have your weapons in your light and heavy slot, Rayne will always dual wield them. Since Rayne is half vampire, she does get some weaknesses like water stinging her a bit. Though she also gets some pluses like being able to suck the blood of her victims, which is important since that's where you be getting your health from. You can even rotate the enemies so they can be a human shield so you won't get shot while feasting. You'll eventually get a hook allowing you to pull a scorpion to drag your enemies closer for a snack. Lastly, Rayne gets some special powers with some being unlocked later on. There's a vision mode where you can see where your next goal is, a slow-mo mode, and a zoom in mode for faraway shots. You also have a blood rage mode, which builds up as you do melee attacks. Once the bar is full, Rayne will go into a powered up mode where everything slows down and she does major damage. While the combat does feel simple with just one button melee and some shooting, it's still really fun. Swinging your blades and seeing what happens to your enemies' bodies, be it something like an arm chop or a head being cut in two, is just gratifying. It also never really felt clunky to me, and same goes for the gunplay, as even though it auto aims, 99% of the time it hits those it's aiming for, and it's usually the enemies that are an immediate threat. You can even do some cool looking movements like cartwheels while shooting, adding a tiny bit more spectacle to the gunplay. The game also adds new attacks to your melee combo as you progress through the game, be it normal or blood rage related, helping you feel more powerful. Even the hook makes you feel more badass, as not only does it pull your enemies in, you can use it to stun them as well so they can't get away that easily. Blood rage is maybe your most helpful tool. As I mentioned, it does crazy damage, and while it does slow down everything, it doesn't affect Rayne's movement. And watching her do her blood rage animation is a joy with all the blade swinging and acrobatics chopping people up. What's actually useless is Rayne's other vampire powers. The vision is kind of pointless as the map in the lower corner works fine enough. Her slow-mo is also pointless as it seems to make both Rayne and the enemies move slow, so it's just like normal speed, just longer. And finally, the zoom in is really only useful in a moment or two, and that's about it. The game does have a good amount of platforming and it works pretty well. If you have to jump on a thin platform, Rayne will stick to it and walk just fine, so no cheap falls. And you'll basically be able to jump on most surfaces, leading you to maybe go the right way in your own special way. Also, Rayne can jump pretty damn high. When it comes to difficulty, I feel the game is pretty fair. It starts off as a pushover, though as you reach further into the game, the enemies will start to come in higher numbers. And some new enemies to be introduced as well, like stronger soldiers that you can't just jump in front of to suck, and you have to try to maneuver behind them. And then you have the jetpack enemies shooting death from above, even bypassing your human shields. So the game does give you that power fantasy for a good amount of time, but eventually checks you later on, leaving you being a little more careful. There are 3 acts and each act is split up into sections, and once you reach a new section, you're allowed to save. But if you die, you gotta do that section again. Though since the length of these sections can be pretty fast and you have a lot of health pickups while the body is running around, it never felt cheap or frustrating. While most of the targets Rayne is after are just the same red alpha soldier guy with kind of a different face, you do eventually come into contact with much bigger targets, which are the boss battles. That makes you stick and move a little differently, and they ain't bad. After playing the game, you're allowed to revisit any of the 3 acts on any difficulty, and there's also a cheat menu you can use at any point. But to get these you have to look online, and the cheats are stuff like God mode. Though fair warning, if you're trying to get trophies, the cheats will disable them. This remaster does show this game's age, as the models themselves can move around pretty comically during the in-game cutscenes. And the face models don't really blink, so Rayne can sometimes look weird. Though besides a chuckle here and there, it never took me out of the game. The character designs themselves are good, such as the bosses. Rayne's design of course looks great, and it's really memorable. There is also some boob bounce in some of the cutscenes, which is never a bad thing. Besides Rayne's little quips, she does get to deliver some lines, and the voice acting is well done, be it her or some of the other faces you run into. The locations you go to in the 3 acts are all visually distinct, with the Louisiana swamps, a big Noxie base, and a giant castle area. Also, one of the things that makes the gameplay so fun is the high level of violence. Just seeing the chunks of the enemy's bodies fly off feels so good, and their reaction makes it better. Like you could chop off their arm and they will run around screaming while a trail of blood is left, allowing you to follow. It just never got boring killing these people. Most of the cutscenes will be in engine, but there are like 3 moments where CGI is used, which is the start, middle, and end. And while the CGI is not mind-blowing for these days, I do feel it still looks good. Now what I'm playing is the PS4 version on my PS5. And from what I read, this led to some problems for players when released, but it was patched later on. I can safely say I never ran into any crashes and the game runs smoothly. There is one bug I did run into, though it has nothing to do with the whole PS4 to PS5 situation. Basically, an extra scene is supposed to play after the final boss is defeated, but it didn't for me. I did find a fix for this, and without spoiling much, you'll be facing 2 people at the end. Kill the big person first and then the other person, and this should trigger the extra cutscene right after, and you don't even have to wait till after the credits.
I am a direct descendant of Elizabeth Battery. You know the name? The Blood Countess. I had a feeling you'd recognize the name. You should appreciate the lust for blood.
I don't appreciate senseless killing. You're a monster, like those creatures down below.
The natives call them Daemites.
No, please, Doctor, not me. No!
I was a big fan of the BloodRayne series years ago, and I have to say after replaying part 1, besides it showing its age visually, it's still a blast to play, even with the remaster's one tech hiccup. And Rayne herself is still a badass and entertaining lead. It took me about 5 hours and change to finish my playthrough, and the only real replay value is just going through the game on a harder difficulty. If you have been curious about BloodRayne or a fan wanting to give it another go, then I can say this remaster is worth your time and it sure as hell doesn't suck. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.